We've got a great speaker today that we've kind of carved this up into two different areas. Brian Beckstead, who is one of the co-founders of Ultra Shoes, he's one of our graduates. He graduated in 2008. He was an outdoor recreation major in the Department of Exercise Science. Just a bit of a history. He came to me probably in 2007 and said, "Slack, I'm gonna develop a new shoe." And I said, "Really? You're an exercise science major? How do you do that?" And he said, "Well, come to a running clinic that they had." So I went to a running clinic up at Runner's Corner, and he and his group processed this. How do you run? Why do you run this way? It was interesting for me to be there and to see this process take place. He's a very accomplished runner. He enjoys the outdoors. An avid outdoorsman. He loves to see the terrain while running. Getting graduated with a degree in exercise science. He ran collegiately here, Utah Valley University. His personal best time, I'm just going to highlight one of them, 100 miler, the Wasatch 100, 26 hours and 52 minutes. I don't know if I can do anything for 26 hours and 52 minutes on a long run. So that's one of his accomplishments. And then St. George Marathon, 2:57. And then his overall win was the Catatoulet snowshoe marathon. Snowshoe marathon in 4 hours and 51 minutes. So not only is he on the cutting edge of technology, in the idea of exercise science, this is a hot topic for barefoot running, zero drop shoes. And then after Brian's done, we're going to have Mike Bonney, who's our resident expert in biomechanics, talk to you a bit about the research that the exercise science department is doing with this zero drop philosophy. So let's give Brian a hand and turn it to him.
See if this, oh good, the mic's working. Well, it's good to be back at the university. I didn't recognize the university, by the way. I pulled up and there's like construction and I'm like walking through the halls and it's totally different. It's good to be back. It's great. It's great to see the growth. I loved my education here. I had a great experience. And as Jason was saying, as a student here, we were very interested in running at the time, and we started looking at biomechanics very closely. And what this led to is my partner and I, my partner's named Golden Harper. We started working at a local running specialty shop. It's over by the Costco on 800 South and 800 East. If you have a chance, you can go get some running shoes there or some Ultras. And so we grew up there. So it's his dad's shop right here. So it's a wonderful shop if you have a chance. So Golden's dad owned the shop. I started working there when he was 13 years old. I started working there when I was 16 years old. So we were raised in an environment of running and running footwear. So as I was here studying outdoor rec and exercise science, still working at the shop, managing the shop, it was really fascinating as we started looking at the way people ran, right? We started looking at how people ran in barefoot, and then we started analyzing how they ran with shoes. We started seeing differences. The way people ran with shoes were different than the way they ran barefoot. So we started doing some research. Now, as Jason said, we love to run. We love it. We're very passionate about it. So a little background on that real quick. Golden, you might not know this, holds the world record for a marathon at age 12. Anybody want to guess how fast? Who's run a marathon here? Anyone? So we've got a few people who've run marathons. How fast do you think that world record is? Anybody want to shout out a guess? 3.5 hours. What? Oh, this guy's done his research. Spot on. 2 hours and 45 minutes for a 12-year-old. So if anybody knows, that's like ridiculously fast, by the way. So I'm an avid ultra marathon runner. So I do 100-mile races. I love mountains. I love climbing mountains. I love running through the mountains. And yes, I can do it for all day and all night and the next day. And I still enjoy it somehow. So we love to run, right? So that's our passion. We love it. So as we're doing this research, we started thinking, okay, when people run barefoot, and then when people run with shoes, what's the difference, right? And what causes that difference? Okay, and so this is where we came up with an idea. So a lot of our quote-unquote research is really a practical application. So Bonnie later will get into some more of the technical details, but we were just kind of brainstorming using our experience and taking it out into the marketplace and doing this really rather simple research, but it was very practical. And hopefully as you go through, you're going to understand that although it was simple research, it's kind of like almost this aha moment, right? And that's what this idea was. We call it zero drop. And what happened here is we would put our shoes in a microwave, in a toaster oven, okay? Would heat up the shoes. Shoes are made of ethyl vinyl acetate, EVA, right? Okay. EVA is in almost every running shoe on the market. It's even used in non-running shoes. It's light, it's flexible, and it's cheap. Okay. So I won't get into the manufacturing process, which is the next evolution of this. We'll save that for a different day. But and then what we would do is, if you look here closely, unfortunately this is a little block. We would cut the shoes. So what we recognized is that every shoe on the market, the heel was twice as high as the forefoot. Okay? And so what we felt that this did is cause an overstride. Okay? So people were heel striking, right? They would come out in front, excessive heel strike. You don't do that when you're barefoot. Okay? You just don't do it when you're barefoot. Even heavy heel strikers aren't going to do it when they're barefoot. And so we wanted people to run like this, not like this. So we noticed the difference being between barefoot and shoes is that in shoes you have a chunky elevated heel. So we thought, well, what happens if we just took out the heel? Right? Simple, right? It sounds simple. We did. It was amazing, okay? People's running technique was better. All of a sudden, people were rolling their ankles less. People had better biomechanics. Their knee pain was going away, their hamstring injuries, their lower back problems, okay? And I'm going to get into why. And so we started doing it for ourselves, and we started doing it for our friends, and next thing we know, our customers, we were recommending it to some of our customers at Runner's Corner. And anybody who tried it, loved it. Almost just across the board, people who tried it loved it. And so, so we started thinking, okay, wow, I think we might be onto something, okay? So over the next couple of years, this was right after I graduated, 2008, 2009, nearly 3,000 pairs of shoes were modified, okay? We would take a bandsaw, we moved on from the microwave oven because that was just a little messy. We'd take bandsaws, okay? We'd take a bandsaw, we'd take a shoe, and our shoes are zero drop, so I can't quite show it quite as well, but we would cut the shoe all the way up to the forefoot, take a belt sander, grind the heel down, and glue the sole back on. Okay, so if you look back at this image here, you can see that we would cut, and I know it's kind of dark, I need to get this lighter, a little bit better image. We would cut all the way up here, and then just take out the elevated heel. So we called it, since we were taking out the drop, we called it zero drop. Okay, and so as we were doing this in our, for 3,000 pairs of shoes, our brain started working. Well, man, we should tell all the other brands about it. So we went and we pitched the zero drop concept to pretty much every major running shoe brand out there. Right? We said, make this shoe. It's zero drop. And these designers would look at us and go, zero what? What does that even mean? And we'd explain it to them. Say, oh, we're taking your shoes, we're hacking them up because they suck. And, okay, we didn't quite use those terminology, right? But that's what we were saying, right? We were saying, your shoes, we feel like there's a better way. And they laughed at us. They thought we were idiots. They're like, you guys are a bunch of young morons, and they threw a bunch of slanderous comments at Utah Valley University, and I just wasn't going to stand for it. So, okay, maybe not. But, so we started sending out surveys with all these shoes, okay? Really simple surveys. How many miles do you run a week, okay? What injuries did you have prior to zero drop? What was your experience on zero drop like? Did it help with any of your injuries? Did it cause any injuries? Really simple. It was about 8 questions, okay? What we found is we had out of 800 surveys, 3 were negative. The rest were positive. And what we found is it reduced shin splints, it reduced runner's knee, it reduced hamstring strains, rolled ankles, lower back pain, IT band syndrome, etc. It was just powerful stuff. The cons, most people experience 3 to 4 weeks of lower calf soreness. Your calves would get sore. We had 2 reported Achilles injuries where their Achilles literally got full-on injured, and that was a problem. I know for the fact that one of them ran 16 miles on it day 1. Okay, so what we found was, so we started telling people how to transition, right? Because of a lifetime of wearing elevated heel shoes, and you can look at all your shoes, probably almost 9 out of 10 of them here, if not more, are going to have an elevated heel, right? A lifetime of wearing elevated heels is neutralizing your calf muscle and your Achilles, right? So it's not loading properly, it's not working properly, it's literally just neutering it, that lower calf, weakening it, okay? So it takes time to get that calf used to the loading of that flat shoe. Okay, so here's why, and so we're doing this, and we're kind of trying to figure out, okay, so why, when we take out the heel, why, right? We're trying to extrapolate all this. A couple things. Simply put, it's natural position. Okay, if nature wanted you with an elevated heel, why were you born with one? Why were you born the way you were? Why were you born with flat, right? Zero drop. That's what zero drop means. Basically, just means flat. Simple. Why does every single running shoe on the market pitch an elevated heel? We can go, I won't go into too much detail. We feel a lot of that's just the technology. They could hype up some fancy whatever technology they had, air, gel, wave, right, whatever, right? And so they could hype that up and highlight that. We don't think that that's necessary. Your body's amazing, and it can handle much more than you think. So we feel like this allows for a natural posture. You feel like you get an elevated heel, all of a sudden it tightens up those calves, it shortens them, okay? It puts your knees forward, it gets your butt back, okay? This is why high heels for ladies are popular, because of this type thing. Sad, I hate it, I think it's wrong. So zero drop is way better for everybody, okay, ladies? Wear flatter shoes. You'll have so many less injuries when you get older. The other thing is running technique, okay? We feel that elevated heel caused your foot in the gait cycle to move forward, and then the weight would cause it to go down, and that extension would catch early, okay, causing more of a heel strike. When you're heel striking, you've got your momentum going down, okay, you've got your impact coming up, and you've got nowhere to go. Those joints and those bones have nowhere to go, okay? So we're causing stress. You then have a pulling motion, okay? You're stopping and you're pulling, okay? So you're getting hamstring, IT band, lower back problems, okay, along with the impact of shin splints and knee problems, okay? When we watch people run barefoot, I'm going to show you a video here in a minute, we don't see that difference, right? We don't see this type of foot strike. We're seeing it more land underneath your body, okay? So we see a straight posture out of balance here, bent in the back. We see overstriding, okay, you get shin splints, you get knee problems, and you have to pull, so you get hamstrings, lower back problems. In a zero drop shoe, and with what we feel like is proper running technique, you know, to allows a more natural running stride, less injury, you're landing with you have a straighter posture, you have a compact arm swing, right, you've got a straight core, and you're landing with a bent knee, okay? I can land here, right, and that's just stopping, okay? How about this? Let's do this. Why not? Most of you guys are young, right? Okay, everyone stand up. Stand up. And try to get a little room. I know the seats are awkward. Okay, you can, this is really easy. Really easy. Okay, I want you to jump 4 inches off the ground. 4 inches. I'm asking, that's all, okay? And land on your heels and don't bend your knees. 4 inches. Oh! Ouch! Right? Can you feel that shock and impact? Okay, now jump 4 feet off the ground as high as you can and land on your bent knee, okay? So I'm gonna jump, okay? See? 4 inches and jarring, right? And I can jump as high as I want, and if I'm bending those knees, that impact is basically nullified. So sit down, right? So that's some of the theory behind it. And we thought, why is every single running shoe on the market producing product and basically spreading the word that this is the way to do it? And we thought that was wrong. We thought that there was a better way to do it. And so, being stupid and entrepreneurs, we started a shoe company. I don't recommend it. We're lucky somehow. We struck gold and it's amazing, and we love it. But we got lucky. So why zero drop? What does it do? Natural positioning, okay, and better running technique, okay. Again, there are some cons. We've had some Achilles flare-ups if you go too much. Your lower calf gets a little sore, so we recommend transitioning. If you ever get a pair of our shoes or look at our research, we always talk about how to transition into our shoes. Most people can do it in about a month. Some people it takes 2 months. Some people can do it in 2 days. It just depends. So that's what we're seeing here. Okay. So little research on this. Okay. Here's just a more practical application. We're seeing 2 racers. Okay. We see one with good technique, one with bad technique. This guy's leaning forward. He's landing under a bent knee. This guy's leaning straight up. Okay. He's coming a heel strike. Guess who won the race? Okay. This guy. Okay. So not only are we looking now we're getting a little bit more technical, a little more performance oriented. If you're braking, you're stopping and you have to pull. Okay. If you're landing more underneath, right, we have a loading, right? It's a spring. Think of your leg as a spring. Okay. It springs, absorbs that shock, and now, rather than just pulling, you actually can spring load, right? So now we talk about power. We talk about performance. We talk about speed and efficiency. You can go faster and use less energy. Okay. So now we start getting into a performance aspect. And that's one of the things that we feel in our shoes. You can run faster using less energy, right? It's just more efficient. Now this is an interesting study which came out. There's a lot of, this was when we started barefoot running, minimalism, those weren't even words when we started our zero drop concept. As we were kind of developing the shoe company, all of a sudden this barefoot running craze started happening. And we're like, okay, you know, barefoot's nice, but you know, that just kind of hurts. And also it takes a long time for your feet to transition. If you want a barefoot run, it's great. You're gonna run with better technique, but boy, you better be prepared to take more like 5 or 6 months to transition. Or with the cushioning, we can do it in 3 to 4 weeks. You get the benefits of minimalism and barefoot running, but you get the benefits of traditional shoes. And it's just really, really great happy medium. But as this barefoot craze was going, some of the things happened. This was a really, really interesting study done by Daniel Lieberman of Harvard. Okay, so what he looked at is he looked at African runners in particular and how softly they landed, and they started doing these force impact. And what he did is we found that if you landed a heel strike, you actually have 3 to 5 times the initial impact on what they call the impact transient, which is the first initial impact. Okay, so you've got this right here. That's what we call that arrow right there is what we call the impact transient. There it is when you're landing midfoot, more underneath your body. We don't say forefoot, okay? Forefoot necessarily is you know, it depends on the person. Some people can slightly heel strike, some people can midfoot strike, some people can forefoot strike. What we're saying is you definitely want to get off that overstriding excessive heel strike. So he looked at the impact here versus here. You can see this one is a bell curve. Okay, that's just natural. That's where you initially touch contact, okay, and then your weight goes over, okay, and propulsion is actually right at the top. That's propulsion, and then it goes down. Well, this one you've got a big shock, and then it goes down, and you've got the bell. So what we noticed here is this is what we call the impact transient, which is where you initially hit, you come over, and then you propel. So it's basically doubling the impact, right? Where if you're landing more underneath your body, it's only the once, right? Instead of a boom, boom, it's just a boom and in and out, right? So that's one of the reasons we're seeing. So we feel that this study and some of the other stuff that we're going to see in the future justifies what we're doing. That this backs it up scientifically. We didn't have the science, right? We were just looking at practical application. We are runners. We are injured, our customers are injured, how can we reduce these injuries, right? It was just this practical application. We started doing a little science. We feel like this science right here backs it up, substantiate it, and there's just more to come. And it's really exciting. And one of the fun things, and I'm going to just drop some of this fun stuff in with you. In less than 2.5 years, Ultra has become the 8th largest brand in the entire running industry in 2.5 years. That's a huge deal. We're growing at a rate faster than Nike did back in the day. So it's really exciting. And I think that that's because it's legitimate. Because we've got science to back it, runners love it. It is fantastic. It's really exciting. So there's the zero drop. There's some of the science behind it. So I'm going to play this little video here, and you can kind of see what we mean. If I can do this properly. Here we go. So this is a really simple video. It plays. Jump up. So you can notice, okay, he's running barefoot. It looks nice, it's natural. We feel like when you're running barefoot, you don't want to slap down because that hurts, right? You want to just run where you can maximize the shock because there's nothing protecting your foot to do it. You have to rely purely on the mechanics, right? You're landing under that bent knee, landing softly. So how do we do that in shoes? As this video shows, there's very little difference between the barefoot and our shoes, yet you get the benefit of that protection and that full cushion. And so it's really fascinating. That's what we're finding in our shoes, in our product, is that if you're running, you get the benefits of this biomechanics, that zero drop, but you can do it with cushion. I won't get into too much detail on all of our products, but we've got light and fast shoes, performance shoes, trail shoes. We even have stability shoes. And I won't get into our, we don't have the research yet on our stability theories, but our stability shoes are really, really, really fascinating. So you can see, we feel like pronation, the industry is really, pronation, of course, is the inward rotation of the foot, right? That's kind of been overdone. Actually, pronation can and should be a way to absorb shock, and so using natural pronation is helpful. So anyway, this is just a fun video showing barefoot running to our shoes, which we feel like that style is similar, but again, you get the benefits of cushion. So let's see here, we'll move on to the, okay. So that's interesting. So since we were changing the industry, we thought, well, let's change everything else that drives us crazy about the industry. First, we started with zero drop. If you go out in the industry now, we started this concept, almost 6 years ago. Everybody talks about drop. Most brands have a zero drop shoe. So it's really exciting that they're kind of following suit amongst our theories. They probably wish they would have done it sooner instead of laughing at us back in the day. But after the zero drop, the next thing that makes us unique, and I think has a lot of scientific backing as well, is what we call our foot-shaped toe box. So you're going to note that almost every shoe on the market, pretty much every shoe you are wearing in here today, has a toe box similar to this. Okay? Ultra shoes have a very wide toe box. Okay? Science is coming on it, but the theory is, and I think it is a real theory, and it is legitimate here, is that this toe box up here allows those metatarsals and your bones to respond naturally, to be able to spread out. You're much more balanced here than you are here. Okay, this is imbalanced. This is balanced. Okay, we feel like people get bunions, which is right here. Bunions, you look at your mom's feet, she probably has bunions, right? Because she was wearing high-heeled shoes, real tapered toe boxes, horrible, okay? Get out of high-heeled shoes, get out of your narrow toe boxes, right? You will have less bunions, neuromas, nerve damage, right? Hammer toes, okay? I actually have a hammer toe, which is where the one curls over the other. Sesamoiditis, right? Where that sesamoid under that first metatarsal starts drifting, pronation. So we feel like our foot-shaped toe box reduces those injuries, right? Again, a lot of this is almost, we're still doing the science, we're really excited to be partnering with UVU, and their science is backing this up. We're excited to do more science along this because we feel like this is something that we didn't have the science, but in theory we felt like it was functional, and I think it is kind of like, wow, that makes sense. Why don't other brands do that? Well, the reason is because this is sexier, right? And seriously, it's shame on shame, right? So it reduces all these things. It also increases stability, propulsion. Those toes, those metatarsals, rather than being neutralized and crumpled up, can now act independently and propel. Better balance, and frankly, they're just more comfortable. So you're going to note in all of our shoes you have this. Now, again, the science is still coming on this. We feel like it's substantiated. We feel like the theories are legitimate. We're excited about more research coming out on toe box shape because that's all of our shoes. We really believe in that. Again, we're feeling that if nature wanted us with more of a tapered toe box, we would have been born that way. But instead, our toes. You look at any 3-year-old kid, their toes. I mean, they've got display. I mean, they've got gaps between each of their toes. Their toes can move independently. How many of our toes can move independently? Most of our toes are all withered, right? Because they don't work. You don't exercise your toes in the shoes. Your shoes are so stiff and your shoes are so narrow that nothing can move. They basically atrophy. Your bones, your muscles in your feet atrophy over time. Where in our shoes, or shoes with a more wide toe box and more flexibility, your feet are actually going to be able to strengthen over time. Your toes can do a lot of great things. So, so that's something interesting there. So real quick, I'm going to kind of, that's the meat and stuff. I'm going to highlight some of the fun things that we're doing with the technology. If you look at most running shoes, and as we were cutting up these shoes, we saw that that most of these technologies were podular, meaning a small pod in the heel and a small pod in the forefoot. Okay, which, you know, good technologies in terms of absorbing shock, but we didn't feel like that was natural. We felt like those almost created pivot points as you run, right? Because if you have a little ball and a little ball, it creates pivot points. So what we've done is our cushioning technology is full length against the foot, right? It's called A-bound. It's 12 times the durability of that EVA, that ethyl vinyl acetate I was talking about. It also has an energy return compound. So it gives you a bit more spring, a bit more bounce, right? And it's against the foot and it's full length. There's no pods, no slits, no nothing. Okay. Another fun thing that we're doing is if you're running barefoot and you hit a rock, right? Your foot moves. And what's the word for that? No professors, students. What's the word? What's the word for this? What?
Shit.
What's that? Hey, there you go. That was pretty good. You know what? That was so good, actually. I'm going to give you a pair of socks for that. Okay, starts with a P. Anybody? Anybody? If you hit a rock with your foot, and your foot kind of micro-adjusts, what do we call that? Okay, who said it? Oh, there. Proprioception. Okay, you get a pair of socks. A pair of Ultra socks. Woohoo! Okay, pass this back to him. Let's see. Oh, jeez. Socks, you know, hard. Proprioception, okay? So if you hit a rock, okay, your foot's going to micro-adjust, go whoa, kind of micro-adjust around it. We call that proprioception. So one of the things that we're doing that's pretty cool with our trail shoe is we have a full-length rock protection plate, okay? But the problem with rock protection plates in most shoes is they're actually right here, okay? What that does is that if you hit a rock, it actually just pivots you. It hits and it pivots. Well, what we've done is we've sandwiched our rock plate between two layers. So now when I hit a rock with the EVA that I was talking about, that soft, light, flexible stuff, it hits and it actually mimics proprioception in the shoe, but your foot doesn't have to feel it because of that. So we're using some really fun technology trying to mimic that proprioception, that natural feeling in the shoes. So it's really exciting as we're able to take our product and use a lot of these scientific principles and utilize them. So what it's done for us has been an award-winning combination. Like I said, we're soon to overtake Adidas. If we keep up the rate, we'll be in the next 10 months, we're going to be bigger than Adidas in the running market. We've won 2 editors' choices from Runner's World, 3 editors' picks in Competitor Magazine, and it's been really, really exciting for us. I'm going to play another little video for you. This one's actually a bit more fun, I think. So. This is the sales pitch. Okay, here we go. Here's the sales pitch in 60 seconds. Let's see if we get sound.
Reasons to follow in others' footsteps? 0. Things weighing on your mind when running? 0. Reasons to buy an Ultra shoe? 0. Drop. 0 drop places your heel and forefoot the same distance from the ground for natural posture and more power and better running technique. Stress caused from squeezed toes? 0. Ultra's foot-shaped toe box lets your toes relax, creating a natural platform for more stability, maximum comfort, and improved performance. Connection lost between foot and ground? 0. Ultra gives you a responsive ride, plus full A-bound cushioning underfoot. Number of other companies that combine 0 drop, foot shape, and full cushioning in a single shoe? 0. Introducing Ultra. Visit ultrazerodrop.com now for free shipping. Wear them for 30 days. If you don't run better, send them back. 0 questions asked. Ultra. 0 drop, 0 limits.
So there's the sales pitch and the kind of the marketing version of what I've been talking about. All of you guys got cards. If you want to write your name on the card, if you want, you can join our mailing list. You can put your email address, and you can get on our email address. It's really cool. You don't have to. Tear off the heel, put them in this, and we'll draw it for a free pair of shoes. How's that? So, yeah, question.
Why the name Ultra?
Why the name Ultra? It's well, first of all, we start by altering shoes, right? So altering, we're alternative, and we also run ultra marathons. So it's just kind of a play on words. We wanted an A name because we wanted to be top on everyone's name, so we were like, oh, we're gonna start with an A. And it just kind of, a bunch of guys in a basement, shooting around. So yeah, question.
Have you done any research as far as arch support?
We haven't done research on that. That's a great question. Arch support in our shoes. We feel like a lot of times arch support, if you break your arm, for example, okay? If I break my arm, I go to the doctor, I get a cast put on my arm, right? Okay? Because I broke my arm. Do I leave that cast on the rest of my life? No, it gets taken off. When it gets taken off, what's my arm? What does my arm look like? Looks like this, right? It's atrophied, it's gotten weak, okay? So we kind of feel like arch support kind of falls into that realm, where if you get an injury, if you have a problem, getting arch support is great, right? It can fix a problem, but it shouldn't, I think it's too much, it's prescribed to be just worn exclusively for the rest of your life. We don't feel like that's the case. And so arch support is not necessarily a bad thing, but I think too much arch support can lead to your plantar and just your foot in general weakening and atrophying over time. So, and I think that there's some research there that indicates, oh, arch support's good, but a lot of times we look at that like, well, yeah, well, that's like putting a cast on your arm. Getting a cast on your arm is good, but you shouldn't have it the rest of your life. And so there's still some kind of toss up depending on which philosophy you're from. Our shoes typically don't have as much support, although we are releasing one shoe called the Repetition in January that has quite a bit of support. We really feel like our shoes are a perfect platform for an orthotic, right? You got that toe splay, your zero drop. They're flexible, so if you need a little rigidity and support, absolutely, put in orthotic. Arch support is great, but our shoes typically don't come with that.
And let me interrupt here for a minute, and let's hold questions. I want to have Dr. Bonnie kind of express some of the research that we've been doing at UVU, and may answer some of those questions. He's going to go for about 6 or 7 minutes, and then we'll open it back up for questions. Because I know you have questions of Brian, and hopefully you have questions of Mike. So while he's getting going,
Swap over the mic.
Sit down and swap over.
Woo, okay, you got it.
Let him go. But the reason we got involved, while we're getting going, so let me introduce a little bit about why we got involved with this. And it simply was because Brian came to us and said, hey, Slack, Dr. Crayer and Bonnie, what can you do to help me? How can we support this? And a lot of the stuff that you've heard so far is that there are theories behind it. This is a theory they had. Granted, I think their theories are spot on, but we were able to do some of the research to help support some of their theories. And we're continuing. You'll see our last slide up there is that we have a lot of things that we're still going to look at. And we were able to secure some grants through the college to buy some shoes. And so we have done several studies with these shoes to help support Brian and his company as they continue to do this, because we believe that they're spot on with that. But let's turn the time to Dr. Bonnie for a minute, and then we'll go with questions.
Is the mic on?
They have to wear it? Check.
Because we're filming.
Oh, because you're filming it, gotcha. As Dr. Slack said, when we first started down this line of research, it was discussions with Brian actually that spurred this, and it was really all hypothetical. And so we kind of started really with kind of that barefoot, landing, and are we seeing kind of that perfect marriage, if you will, between shoes and protection and really getting into more of that natural stride. And so what we started with actually was kind of the oxygen uptake and some heart rate measures and some metabolic things. And originally we thought, we'll get the really experienced runners, the high level runners, the ones that are very, very skilled at this. And well, there's a couple of problems with that, and I'll explain that in just a second. But then at the same time, I also wanted to look at some of the kinematics and mostly dealing with the footfall angles. And then we moved on to some muscle activity, and I'll get into those in just a second. But what we saw was metabolically, our experience group was probably too homogeneous. For those of you that understand oxygen uptake, what was our average, Andy? Do you remember what it was?
Yeah, it was 71.
Well, yeah, the VO2 of about 71, which I think my highest ever was about a 62, which 71 is extremely high, and they were all really clumped together. And the other thing we were noticing was that a lot of the running strides were already kind of hitting that mid-foot strike. but not exclusively. So we didn't see a lot metabolically, but mechanically, as we looked at those footfalls, we were seeing quite a bit. And actually, I'm going to go to the next slide and show this. And this is really what we saw with that foot strike angle. So with the zero drop and the barefoot, we were seeing a little bit of a plantar flexed, so more of a mid to 4 foot strike, where in the standard shoes, we were doing exactly what Brian was talking about a few minutes ago, and we were seeing that overstride. We were seeing a very prominent heel strike. And again, when you look at the arguments for barefoot running or minimalist running at this point, a lot of it was anecdotal. And you look at the injury rates, and the injury rates for regular runners were in excess of 50% of regular runners were injured every year, which is extremely, extremely high. And so what we end up with is we're seeing, okay, yeah, we've got this foot strike angle, but then are we also seeing the cushioning? And this is really what we saw in the zero drop, and this is kind of a misleading number because we didn't start at zero, but we also saw the standard shoe was taking more time, but we saw that the zero drops were very similar to the standard shoes in terms of the timing. Now, normally when we see foot falls that are taking longer time, we're thinking, okay, they're running slower. Well, this was done on a treadmill, we standardized the times, the speeds were all the same. And so what we're seeing, even the experienced runners that were very, very skilled, was that we were seeing, and I'm just gonna go back one slide, we were seeing that we were getting the cushioning, we were changing the foot strike angles, and kind of finding that perfect marriage, if you will. And so from there, we started looking, okay, what's really altering this? You know, as we look at the kinematics, what's really altering it? And that's where we start getting into, you know, what are the muscles doing? And this was actually one that we just did last year, so we're still in the process of getting through this one. We've moved to recreational runners, and so more of the general public type runners with this stuff. And we really wanted to start with what was going on, particularly in the shank area of the leg, that lower leg. And so as we looked at the impacts, you know, how are the muscles responding to this? Oddly enough, we did not see anything in the gastroc, but we did see significant changes in, there they are actually, I don't know where the P's went. But we also threw a minimalist shoe in here. But what we saw in the soleus and in the tibialis anterior were increase in the standard running shoes, those with the big heel drops. And what we look at with this is like, well, that's great, that's giving us a better workout, but the problem is as we look at distance running, it's also leading to faster fatigues. And so, and part of the thing, we started going, well, why aren't we seeing it in the gastroc if we're seeing it in the soleus? And a lot of it has to do, we're pretty sure, and this is actually something we're going to be looking at in the near future, is actually the impact angle in terms of what's happening higher up the leg. Because when you go look at a stretch for the gastroc and soleus, they're very different stretches. So for example, the soleus, you're looking at more of a bent leg, whereas the gastroc, you're looking more of a straight leg. And where we didn't see anything with that gastroc, we're thinking it's more that we're seeing more of a bent leg during that landing, which again is what Brian explained in the postural things, which oddly enough is also one of the things that we're looking at right now is the effects of the zero drops on not only acute posture, but particularly as we fatigue. This was a question actually that Dr. Slack had, and he's like, well, that's great for running, but a lot of times we're just walking around in these things. And so what are we really seeing? And the difference we see between walking and running, I'm gonna hurry through this because I wanna leave some time for questions, but the difference we see between walking and running really deals with whether or not we have single and double support. And double support, it does not exist in running. And typically with double support, just to give you a little background, is, and I'll bring the slides up. When we see an increase in double support, typically we're seeing a perception of instability. If we see single support decreasing and double support increasing, that's where we're seeing a perception of us feeling unstable, even if we're used to it and we're not seeing it. So what we see here is the single support in the traditional shoe is drastically decreased, significantly decreased, and double support is drastically increased, where the minimalist, the zero drops, and the barefoot were all statistically non-significant. So basically, from a statistical standpoint anyway, we're looking at those are really kind of giving us the same thing. So again, even though we're seeing, you know, benefits to the running stuff, we're also seeing alterations in the walking gait as well. So this is actually something that they just presented actually at WSKW, what was it, 3 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago, something like that. So this is actually kind of some brand new findings, and actually we're in the process right now of looking at the underfoot pressures to get back to, are we seeing alterations in those as well? Yeah. So for the future, basically right now, I am currently working on the effects of fatigue, particularly on balance. Are we seeing alterations in the balance? Dealing a lot with what we saw with the walking. Are we seeing alterations in the posture, which is actually one of the first questions Brian asked us, was as they fatigue, are we seeing a better posture with more of that natural foot position? And again, I do need to get more into the kinematics, particularly as we move up the leg into the knee and hip. And actually a lot of trunk movements, particularly during fatigue. We see a lot more trunk sways, not only in the sagittal plane, but we see a lot more in the frontal plane as well. And then this was a question that actually came out of our EMG question, the muscle activity question last year at ACSM, was really what's happening from a musculature standpoint all the way through. So really, how are we controlling these alterations? Are we seeing increases in some areas and decreases in some areas? Are we truly just seeing decreases? And to be honest, at this point, we don't know. And then actually, we do want to go back and revisit the metabolic study with recreational runners and get a little more diverse population in that study. So that's some of the stuff we've been doing. And again, we have probably 3 publications that are being written up right now just based on this stuff. And quite honestly, I think the take-home message really is that we've think we may have found that perfect marriage between that natural running stride that we see in the barefoot and, well, still having some cushioning. So when you do step on a rock, it doesn't hurt quite as bad. So all right.
Let's go and open up questions to both Brian and
Yeah.
Mike, so if you'll address it to one of those two.
We'll do the drawing in a minute. Yeah.
How much are, on average, are your shoes?
About $110 average. So $90 to $130 based on the model.
Well, I'm not in any of these classes. I just kind of stopped in because I'm a runner and I found it interesting. So I found in my personal running that for my cool down activity, if I took off my shoes and walked home barefoot, that I wouldn't get shin splints. So
Yep.
Is this the research that kind of goes with that?
Absolutely.
Because I'd love to have research that actually supports what I do for that.
Absolutely. I think that definitely goes along. And so, I think that our shoes, that walking home, that cool down on that barefoot, that natural alignment, now you'd probably be able to do less of a cool down, although cool downs are highly recommended, not only just from skeletal, from shin splints, but also muscular as well. Yeah.
It's starting to get colder. I don't necessarily want to walk home barefoot anymore.
Well, you can wear our shoes now. You can just wear the shoes, but still walk, but just do it with the shoes, and I suspect you'll get the same results. Any other questions? Yeah.
With cutting out the sole a little bit, did you find that the shoes aren't lasting as long as they normally would, or?
Actually, no. We find that they last just as long, if not longer. First of all, the forefoot cushion is the exact amount. And on that bell curve that you saw, the maximum amount of pressure and force isn't actually on impact, it's actually on propulsion on the forefoot. And so the need of having that much cushion on the heel is almost pointless, because actually when you propel, when you're pushing up, that's actually where the most force is. And we have the same amount of forefoot cushioning. In fact, we find that the shoes last almost longer because rather than all that impact on one point, you tend to be more even. And so the wear pattern actually is better. So there's zero difference in wear in terms of our shoes are going to last just as long as any other shoes, but a lot of times longer because of the impact isn't on one small point. So.
What kind of warranty like they wear out or break or something?
We have a 30-day unconditional guarantee, and then after that, so if you don't like it for any reason, you can return it after 30 days. And then typically the shoes, if you have more than 300 miles on them, we won't take them back. But if something falls apart after 150 miles, we take them back.
Do you have any plans of extending this to other sports like basketball, tennis, anything like that?
Yes, but very slowly. We're starting actually, and Mike's been doing just some research on this, is as more of a walking shoe as well. And we do a lot in the hiking community because we feel like you're much better balanced for hiking and trail running. So we're slowly going to branch out, but I think it'll be a while before we get to anything like tennis or basketball. We're just going to branch out naturally, moving into gym shoes, casual around town, hiking, and then we'll just see where it goes from there.
Yeah, start before like Abrams, and you said because the minimalistic movement hasn't quite started yet. You said.
Yeah. Yeah, so barefoot, Vibrams had been out on the market, but they hadn't really taken off as a company when we conceptualized our zero drop. They'd already launched, and we thought, and that was one of the points was we like what Vibram's doing, but no runners know about it. It wasn't really a buzzword yet, and so that's when we conceptualized zero drop. By the time we got Ultra out on the market, Vibram had just exploded, and now they've died, and we've overpassed them. We're bigger than them, and yeah, all that. Yeah.
I have a question. You have some relationship as a former student here at UVU. Are there other folks that are doing research along with your shoes similar to UVU?
Yeah, we've done certain research studies that students have contacted us, and we've sent out shoes. Unfortunately, with our growth, we haven't been able to follow up as well as we'd like, so I've worked closer with UVU than any other university with the product. But yeah, there's 2 or 3 other universities doing studies currently on them. But I gotta just, call these guys up. They come over to my office and, grab shoes and stuff. So we're just right up the road. So we're in North Orem, so it's easy.
Maybe this is a question for Dr. Bonnie. We know that when you're running barefoot, the force applied on the forefoot is it kind of goes up and a little curvature.
Yes.
Versus a linear line.
Yeah,
These shoes, how does it compare?
And that's part of the kinematic stuff that I'm still not quite positive on yet. The one thing we do know is that when you're running barefoot versus shod in all conditions, regardless of the shoe, barefoot you're going to land softer. But the thought is that if we have a better position, not only at the ankle, but moving up to the knee and hip, that we should probably see similar decreases to what we see barefoot. And that's actually one of the studies that I'm starting next semester. If anybody's interested, I do need helping hands. So it's one of those that we think that it's still going to give us the similar cushioning, but quite honestly, we're not sure yet.
Any other questions before we do a drawing? Yeah.
It seems like a lot of it has to relate to your running technique. And I suppose like with any shoe, if you were to coach someone and help them learn to run more efficiently and have better biomechanics, you'd probably see a decrease. Are you saying or insinuating that your shoes help people develop better mechanics quicker because it naturally your body?
Yeah, I'll take that one. It is one. Yeah, just go for it. Yeah, I'll take it. It's one of those that as you look at the traditional shoe, the additional weight in the heel, regardless of where the foot is actually landing, you're still moving more towards that heel, just because as it comes through, there's more weight there. So without that extra weight in there, we're actually seeing that it does become much more of a mid to forefoot strike in every foot. Even those that, in the traditional shoes, for example, Danny Moody, has a midfoot strike anyway, regardless of the shoe he's in. But we saw his angle change still about 7 degrees, even with people that are naturally doing that, just because we're losing that extra weight in the heel.
We find that A, it's easier to learn, and B, it's easier to maintain as you fatigue. Great question.
Dr. Bonnie is here on campus. Would be happy to answer any questions that you may have with this. We also have access to Brian's email address and his information. You can gather a lot of stuff online, but I want to suggest to you that these guys are moving in the right direction with the research that's out there. There's a big barefoot continuum that people are looking into. We attended ACSM and went to one of the sessions with barefoot, and there's a lot of people that are talking one way or another. It's really quite interesting there's still a lot of people that don't believe anything Brian said. And there's still the traditional runners, and there's a lot of research to support that opposed to this research. And so we're moving in that direction a bit with this, but I encourage you to look into it if it's interesting for you. We can answer any questions that you may have also on campus. So let's give these guys a round of applause.
Okay, so shoes first, and then I got a couple socks and little things. Does that work?
Sure. Mine.
Make sure.
Senior seminar, stick around for keynote speaker. You're still on class time.
Heather Matheson.